All right, everyone, welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 2 recap 2017. Uh, Another great week of matchups. Um, let's see. A lot of injuries again this week. Nobody was really, I would say, devastated by injuries, but we had a lot of low scores again. Even though Jim lost David Johnson and Allen Robinson last week, he bounced back with a win over the previously uh, unstoppable looking FC Bohoric. So that didn't quite stop him. He was able to get a win. So there's no reason to hit the panic button, even though you lose some of your good players along the way. You just got to hope that the bleeding stops and that you're able to find ways to win further on down the line. However, I think Jim lost another player. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head right now, but hey, keep plugging away. There's really not much that you can do about it besides roll with the punches and maybe figure out if it's just not going to be your year. Somewhere, but better sooner than later, I think, so you can come to some kind of acceptance of it, I guess. But anyway, let's just get right down to business. First matchup, defending champion, Gags to Riches, going up against Brian Hillbillies on PCP. And I believe this one, did it come down to the final Monday night? Yes, I think so, because actually, did it? Were there any Lions or? Actually, no. This one was done. I'm sorry about that. I think there was. I didn't get these scores done Sunday night. I didn't do them until Monday, so everybody was wanting to know what the actual scores were. Blah blah blah. Even though you can pretty easily do them yourself. Not calling anybody out in particular on that, of course. Just saying. But anyway, the final score here was Hillbillies on PCP 161.05 to Gags to Riches 151.9. Quarterbacks, Rivers versus Winston. Rivers 55 to Winston's 32.5. Let's see, Brian's receiving trio, Antonio Brown, Demarius Thomas, and Devontae Parker. Brown 11.2, Thomas 13.1, and Parker 12.5. So that comes out to about 36, 37 points for your three receivers. While Gags, he had Devontae Adams, Rashard Matthews, and Mike Evans. Adams 24, Matthews 7, Evans 22.3. So that looks to be about 50 or so, maybe a little bit more. That's what, 45, 52-ish from your three receivers. So a little bit of a back advantage there. Running backs, Brian had Jordan Howard and Thomas Rawls, who combined for 1.1, as Howard had 7 yards and Rawls had 4. I think it was pointed out on the Line app, one of the worst running back combo performances of all time. Not sure how accurate that is, but it's got to be pretty close. Anyway, Gags had Marshawn Lynch and Jeremy Hill. Lynch, 45 yards and a touchdown. Hill, only 17 yards. So looks like, let's see, Lynch, that would have been 10.5. So about a little over 12 from your running backs. So you're making up the ground here with your receivers and your running backs in terms of the quarterback difference there. Tight ends, we had Kelsey versus Delaney Walker. Kelsey 24.3 to Walker's 16.2. So there again, Gags taking those points, that point advantage back. Said the difference was 22 or 23 between your quarterbacks. So you've probably made most of that back up here through the rest of your lineup, but unfortunately, it's going to fade near the end. Flex plays, you actually won this one here too, Gags. Ingram versus McCaffrey, 11.5 to 8.5. Kickers, let's see, Brian had Lutz from New Orleans. Looks like he had a couple field goals, a couple PATs. And Gags had Tucker for Baltimore. Looks like he had a couple PATs, one field goal, one missed field goal. He only had 4 on Yahoo, while Lutz had 8. So there's always a little bit. You got to toss in half a point to somewhere between a half to 1.2, 1. Between 1/2 and 1.5 usually. Somewhere in there is what you tack on with your fractional kicker points. But here was the difference maker, I think, because Gags, after the quarterbacks, he dominated the rest of the roster down through the kickers, until the kickers. But the biggest problem here was the defense. Swung this one back in favor of Hillbillies on PCP. As Denver, they had a couple of interceptions, one of which was returned for a 100-plus yard touchdown. So you got a bonus for that. Yahoo says 20. It was probably closer to low 30s, would be my guess. Because I think Dallas, they did okay passing, but I think they did very poorly in terms of rushing yardage. So I think you might have actually gotten 9 points for their rushing total. Because I want to say Ezekiel Elliott had only less than 10 yards, I believe, in that game. As for Gags, he had the Patriots defense, who still had a fairly good matchup against New Orleans. It's a tough one. You're hoping for some turnovers, but with Drew Brees, they're going to give up a lot of yardage, which they did. Looks like they only had 1 sack, but they gave up a decent amount of points. All you're hoping for is to get a couple sacks and turnovers there, but it's not too good with Drew Brees. He's not usually doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Pretty good that way, but you kind of got what you were expecting from New England's defense here this week. Just got to be hoping that they can start playing the Jets and the Bills and the Dolphins here, teams in their division pretty soon. But anyway, Yahoo says 7. It was probably right around there, maybe 10, something like that. But that was the difference there. Quarterback and defense was, like I said, Gags, you won every other spot in the lineup there except quarterback, defense, and kicker. And those were the points that swung it in favor of Brian here with a 10-point win. So with that, the defending champ, Gags to Riches, he is in 11th place at 0-2, while Hillbillies on PCP with the win, he stays undefeated, 2-0, and he is in 3rd place. All right, we're just going to go right down the line here. Next, we had New Gods Mad Titans versus the Skellahor Isotopes. And New Gods was the only team to go over 200 this week. Final score was 210.85 to 164.9 for the Isotopes. You may, or probably haven't, but you might have noticed that I've had to adjust the scores for the Isotopes here a couple of times here, but it's because there's something going on with Yahoo. And McManus, the kicker, he was listed as having, yesterday, made 12 extra points in the game on Sunday here, and I know that wasn't correct. So I had to wait until that got sorted out until I could properly figure out what Yahoo was going to put my score as, and then adjust it to make sure I had the right score there. But anyway, quarterbacks, we had Mariota for New Gods versus Derek Carr. Carr 46.5 to Mariota's 29. Wide receivers here. New Gods had Terrell Pryor, Crabtree, and Sanders. And as we know, Derek Carr was throwing to Michael Crabtree, and he had 3 touchdowns on his 6 catches, 32 points for Crabtree. Sanders had 24.2, and Pryor 5. So that was about 60 points, maybe a little bit more, from your 3 receivers, while the Isotopes had Alshon Jeffrey, Hill, and Diggs. Jeffrey, 22.2, Hill, 8.3, and Diggs, 4.7. So that was only a little over 32, 33 points from those 3 receivers. As for running backs, New Gods had Melvin Gordon and C.J. Anderson. Gordon actually did most of his damage in the in the passing game, as did Gurley for the Isotopes. But Gordon did have 1 rushing touchdown. I think he didn't have very many yards rushing, though, but he did get that touchdown there. C.J. Anderson, he had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown, over 100 yards rushing. Yahoo says 33. I'm not sure quite what it was, actually, because we got to cut out those receiving points there. So the end, I forget what the total is, and I'm not going to look it up here exactly, because that would take a little bit of time, and you guys don't like waiting for that. I talk enough, waste enough time as it is, which I'm doing right as we speak. Anyway, Gurley, he had 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving, 1 rushing. And Jonathan Stewart had 40 yards, so only 4 points there. So about 25 points for the Isotopes, 2 running backs. Tight ends, we had Gronk versus Witten. Actually won by Witten here, 23.5 to 25.5. Flex plays, Le'Veon Bell versus Jordan Reed. Le'Veon 13.1 to Jordan Reed 10.8. Another big difference here. Kicker Chris Boswell kicked a bunch of field goals, a couple PATs. Yahoo says 15, so it's a little bit more than that. As for McManus, he actually only had 5 because he kicked a bunch of he did kick a bunch of PATs. It wasn't 12, it was only 6, but he did miss his only field goal attempt. So he is, I think, 1 for 3 now. His missed field goal last week cost us a win, and this week it didn't really matter. But he's starting to lose patience with him if he's going to keep missing those field goals, especially at home in Denver, where you think he should be automatic. Anyway, the defenses: New Gods had Houston, Isotopes had the Chiefs. Houston, Yahoo says only 12, but I think it was actually more like 25. They did pretty well against Cincinnati, didn't give up a whole lot of yards, and even though they didn't have a lot of sacks or turnovers, the yardage got you a lot of points there. As for Kansas City, they had 6 sacks, a couple turnovers, didn't do too great in terms of yardage. Yahoo says 18, I believe it was actually 21, so there wasn't much added onto there. So it was a slight advantage there for New Gods Mad Titans. But I think the most annoying part about this matchup was seeing the Yahoo weekly recap that came in in email today, and go reading through that. It says, New Gods Mad Titans had the highest scoring wide receiver of the week. New Gods Mad Titans had the highest scoring running back of the week. New Gods Mad Titans had the highest scoring tight end of the week. New Gods Mad Titans had the highest scoring kicker this week. So everything fell into place here for New Gods Mad Titans. Oh, and also, I did point this out on the Line app, that this is 2 years in a row. Michael Crabtree, you are the bane of my existence. You got some kind of connection with the Huber brothers. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. Because last year, Michael Crabtree, in his only multiple touchdown game of the year, he had 3 touchdowns against me, for Jay Huber, and he beat me by 6 points, which was the deciding factor, that 3rd touchdown. And once again this year, Michael Crabtree, against the Isotopes, goes for 3 touchdowns 2 years in a row. For another Huber brother. Something smells fishy. I feel like there might be some sort of collusion in there. I don't know. I know Michael Crabtree and the Huber brothers probably aren't associated, but you never know. I'm gonna I'd have the commissioner look into that, but he is the commissioner, so nothing shady there, right? Anyway, with the win, New Gods Mad Titans stays undefeated, and he actually jumps up to first place, while the Isotopes fall to 0-2, and they are in 9th place. Next, we had a great matchup here on Monday. Came down to Monday night. Everybody Ertz versus Disco. Let's see. The score originally was going into Monday night. It was Ertz had 137.25 to Disco's 106.5, and Disco having Stafford, Paul Perkins, and Beckham Jr., while Ertz had Golden Tate. So he had one of Stafford's receivers there, was hoping it would be just enough. Stafford throwing to Tate, throwing to Tate to get maybe just enough points to hold him off. But said the difference was only about 30.8, something like that, 30.7. So you needed a big game from Tate to kind of balance that out. And the only reason this matchup was really close, said when someone has a quarterback against you and a 30-point deficit there, you're expecting that should be it should be covered fairly easily, considering he had 3 players versus your 1. But unfortunately for Disco, this one actually was made really close because Stafford only scored 29.5 points, which is pretty, as we all know, is a pretty low total for quarterbacks here. And he was the final score, I should say, was 144.5 to 143.75. So less than a point there. We'll have to keep an eye out in case there were any stat corrections. That you never know what could happen there. Maybe shift something in favor of everybody Ertz and possibly change the outcome here of this matchup. However unlikely, it always is a possibility. Let's see, quarterbacks. Stafford said 29.4 to Flacco's 40.75. Receivers for Disco, he has Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry. Cooper only 7.3, Thomas 13.9, and Landry 20.1. Because you got a little, Landry actually had -7 rushing yards, so that doesn't count. You got those 0.7 points back. So you actually got a little bit more than that. So it looks like you got about 41 or 42 points from your 3 receivers, even though if one of your wide receivers is going to catch 13 passes, you're kind of going to hope that it's for a little bit more than 78 yards, because that figures out to, about 6 yards per catch, I think. Not too good, but that's really par for the course for Jarvis Landry, I think. And over the course of his career, that's kind of what you're getting from him. Anyway, Ertz's receivers, Julio Jones, Golden Tate, and Deshaun Jackson. Julio, 15.8, Tate, 6.5, and Jackson, 6.9. So looks like about 28, 29 points from your 3 receivers. Running backs, Disco had Carlos Hyde and Paul Perkins. Perkins, only 1 point, while Hyde went over 100 yards. He got you no touchdowns, though, so he got you about 15. And Ertz had Fournette and Freeman. Fournette, a touchdown and 40 yards, so 10 points. Freeman, looks like he had 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, so 20 points there. So once again, everybody Ertz. The Devontae Freeman effect, I think, is officially gone and over with, as Freeman scoring touchdowns again, but Jay is not getting the win. So pretty safe to assume that has faded into history. As for, tight ends, we had Eifert versus Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham only had 1 for 1, while Eifert had 3 for 42, and I think they are both now hurt. Perhaps Graham maybe a little bit more than Eifert, but Eifert has different injuries in different places, like a knee and a shoulder or something. He's always hurt. So who knows what Disco is going to do in the future there in terms of banking on Eifert's health. But anyway, flex plays, we had two receivers, Beckham Jr. and Jordan Matthews. Beckham Jr. coming back from his injury, he only had 7.5, while Matthews had only 6. Kickers, Gostowski for Disco, Santos for Ertz. Gostowski, couple field goals, couple PATs. Yahoo says 8. And as for Santos, couple field goals, couple PATs, and Yahoo says 9. So it's always a little bit more than that. Defenses, Disco had Pittsburgh going against Minnesota. Got a little bit lucky break there as they ended up not playing Sam Bradford. And that might have been the biggest difference maker here that kept this matchup so close. Winnable for, I guess, Disco is not having Sam Bradford there for Minnesota. Starting Case Keenum, he was pretty terrible. Didn't give up a lot of points or yardage. I think they might have only had 1 turnover. But Pittsburgh's defense did do pretty good. Seattle's defense also did pretty well. Looks like 2 sacks and a turnover. Didn't give up a lot of points. I don't think they gave up a lot of yards either, so you did get a pretty good score from both of those defenses. But up and down the rosters, it was just slightly, as I said, a hair in favor of Disco down to the end there. It was Odell Beckham Jr.'s very last catch. It was like a 7 or 8 yard catch near the end of the game there, because that was the clincher, because Perkins didn't do anything. Stafford, they were at the point in the game where he didn't need to throw any more passes, so they were just running the ball the rest of the time. And so, like I said, he only got you 29.5, which if he does a normal quarterback performance, this matchup wouldn't have really been close at all. But anyway, it was. But it went in favor of Disco. He is 2-0. He is in 4th place. And Ertz is 0-2. He is in 10th place. Next we have the Dubsy Hooligans versus the team he drafted, Possum Magic. And, was there a little bit more collusion here? I'm just kidding. I know I want to say there probably isn't. I'm sure there isn't. But anyway, Dub C crushing Possum Magic, turning him into roadkill. The final score, 187.3 to Possum. Not even breaking 100, 91.2. Pretty much doubling up the Possum Magic there for Dub C Hooligans. Let me take a quick look and see what the actual margin of defeat was. It is 96. So you actually more than doubled up the scores there. Let's see. Quarterbacks. Dub C, Drew Brees versus Russell Wilson. 55-56 for Brees. Wilson, 40.5. Wide receivers, Dub C had Dez Bryant, Nelson Aguilar, and Marquise Lee. Dez went for 19. Aguilar, let's see. He had only 1 catch near the end of the game in garbage time, but it was a 9-yard touchdown. And Marquise Lee, one of the guys filling in here for Allen Robinson, since he's gone. Not a bad game for him, 14.5. So it works out to about, 40 points for your 3 receivers. As for Possum Magic, his receivers, it's become quite a shit show here for those receivers. They're just not panning out. As stacked as Possum Magic is at the running back position, these wide receivers are really letting you down. Sammy Watkins, only 5. Brandon Marshall, only 2.5. And Ginn, only 5.5. So about 13 points from your 3 receivers. Running backs, Possum's got McCoy and Lamar Miller. LaShawn McCoy only had 9 yards, and Miller had 61, so you got 7 points combined. No touchdowns or anything from those guys, so pretty disappointing matchup there for your guys, obviously, which is basically pretty clear because you only scored 91 points. Anyway, Dub C's big acquisition, Kerwin Williams, blew your wad on Fab Dollars last week to pick up this guy. He got you 2.5 points. Hopefully that was worth the $65. Maybe it'll pan out a little bit better as the season goes along, but I think it looks like they were a rotating carousel of running backs in that game, so who knows what's going to happen. And then your other guy was Jacquizz Rodgers. He had 60 yards and a touchdown, so you got about 12.5. So about 15 points from your two running backs. Tight ends, fairly even here. Hunter Henry versus Zach Ertz. 15 for Henry, 14.7 for Ertz. Flex plays, this won't happen too often. Ezekiel Elliott gets outscored by Buck Allen, Javoris Allen. Kevin's other big splurge in the free agent pool last week. This one looks like it's actually going to be worth the money. As Allen, he had 21 points, most of it coming on receiving stats there. He had a receiving touchdown. I see 5 receptions, but it's not listing the yardage there, so I'm not sure exactly what it was. Probably about 50 or 60. But Ezekiel Elliott, he only had 6.2. I think I said before he was under 10 yards. Yeah, he had 8. He did have 4 catches for 14 yards to add on to that for your flex spot here. But so you might want to consider moving Elliott up to one of the running back spots and McCoy down here to the flex, because at least in the first 2 weeks, I think McCoy has been doing a lot better in terms of receiving stats there. Although all of those guys are capable of putting up pretty good receiving stats too. So it really is a crapshoot, to be perfectly honest. But if it was me, I'd probably be leaning more towards McCoy at this point in the season, based on the first 2 weeks. But that's just my perspective. Anyway, kickers, we had Dub C doubling up on Possum here. Bryant versus Bailey. Bryant 14, Bailey 7. Always a little bit of fractions tacked onto there. And then Arizona versus Minnesota. Minnesota did good last week, but they were in a tough spot here. Again, with being at Pittsburgh with their good offense, but they held their own as much as they could, I think, considering that the Vikings offense did not help them out much at all. So Yahoo says 5. I think it was right around that for you there with Minnesota's defense. Well, Arizona thought that they would do a lot better than this, but they barely pulled out the win in I know they were at Indianapolis, but and as terrible as it looks like the Colts are going to be, at least until they get Andrew Luck back, looks like Brissett might be okay for the time being. But anyway, you kind of expect Arizona should have had their way with the Colts here against their good defense like they have. But they didn't give up a whole lot of points, but they did have a couple sacks and a turnover. I can't remember if their turnover went for a touchdown or if that was last week. But anyway, they did okay, got you the win. Yahoo says 13. It's probably a little bit more than that, closer to 20. But way more than enough when your opponent only scores 90. So Dub C, credit you here with a good win, nice high score. And as everybody else probably knows by now, as I'm saying this, Kevin traded away a couple of his starters here, Drew Brees, Dez Bryant, and the currently suspended Doug Martin. And now he will be having Mike Evans, Winston to Evans he'll have, and he will also be getting Ingram. So that kind of trading away Doug Martin is going to probably make Jacquizz Rodgers irrelevant for you down the line. But you do have Mark Ingram, who, he's kind of more of a flex play than he is a straight running back, which I don't know how much that's going to help you outside of scoring touchdowns there. So, because you pretty much are, your flex spot is going to be either Buck Allen or Theo Riddick. I would imagine the rest, no matter what you, for the rest of the season, it's going to be one of those two guys. I don't really see anybody else who is, who you would want to put in that spot, because those two guys are essentially pass catching running backs. So you're basically handcuffing yourself into not being able to put Mark Ingram in that spot. So you'll be touchdown dependent on Ingram though. But you never know what could happen. That's my quick critique there. But anyway, enough talking. Possum Magic, he is 0-2. He drops to 12th place, and obviously he is the knockout victim this week, joining Gags on the sidelines here. And Dubsy Hooligans, he moves up to 1-1, and he is now in 6th place. Let's see. Next matchup, we had last week's big kahuna, FC Bohoric, going up against the Mighty Midgets, who was the big loser from last week in terms of losing players and stuff like that. Although he wasn't eliminated from the knockout pool, he did survive that. And the Mighty Midgets pulling off the upset this week here with a score of 154.35 to knock off FC Bohoric 124.1. The biggest difference here was that Sunday night game that I think we thought was going to be a shootout. It kind of was, a pretty high score, 34-23, but you were kind of hoping for more. I'm sure Justin was hoping for more from Matt Ryan there. Only 36 points from him to 56 for Aaron Rodgers, so a 20-point difference there. But the matchup was a 30-point difference, so you would have liked to see a little bit more from Matt Ryan. And of course, if you're Justin, you would be hoping that it would be to Austin Hooper there to maybe cover that difference there. But it wasn't to be this week. Said quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers versus Matt Ryan, 56-36. Mighty Midgets receivers, Brandon Cooks, Corey Coleman, and Kendall Wright. Cooks had 6.5. Let's see. Coleman only 1 for 9, and I believe he, same as last year, he broke his hand, so he's going to be out for a while. Kendall Wright, he actually had 14 points, so it looks like you got about a little over 20 from your 3 receivers. As for FC Bohoric, his trio is AJ Green, Keenan Allen, and Larry Fitzgerald. Pretty good trio there, at least on paper. AJ Green, he's been suffering with all the rest of the Bengals offense here from the struggles of Andy Dalton and the offensive line there. Hopefully, for your sake, they get that fixed pretty soon. Anyway, AJ Green, 11.7. Keenan Allen, still not hurt. Maybe I cursed you there. Cross your fingers. 19 points for him. And Larry Fitzgerald, 5.1. So you got about 36 from your receivers. Running backs, Mighty Midgets had Abdullah and Carson from the Seahawks. Abdullah, 86 yards. Carson, 93 yards. No touchdowns, though, so about 18 points there. Running backs, Justin has Kareem Hunt and Mike Gillislee. They scored 3 touchdowns, 2 for Hunt, 1 for Gillislee. Hunt had 80 rushing yards and Gillislee had 69. So you got about 35-ish from your 2 running backs there. Tight ends, Kyle Rudolph versus Austin Hooper. So Justin was probably hoping for more from the Matt Ryan to Austin Hooper connection, but it wasn't to be this week. Kyle Rudolph actually outscored him 8.5 to 2.5. Flex plays, this was another big difference maker here. Said even though Jim lost David Johnson for probably most of the year, if not the whole year, he was able to slide Ty Montgomery down into that flex spot, which is probably going to be a pretty good place for him anyway. You would have liked to have them there. I mean, you can't not flex David Johnson. But when you drafted Ty Montgomery, that was kind of after you already had Aaron Rodgers. This is kind of the most ideal situation to have accidentally stumbled into. But anyway, Ty Montgomery actually had 29 points. I believe he scored 2 touchdowns. Looks like he had 6 catches for 75 yards. So he did pretty well on the ground, okay on the ground and in the air. So big score from him. And Pierre Garçon was the flex for Justin. He only had 5.5. Kickers, Folk versus Prater. Folk had a couple field goals, a couple PATs, and looks like Prater had 1 field goal and a couple PATs in favor of Folk here, 12-8. And defenses, Mighty Midgets went with the Chargers, while Justin went with the Rams. Both teams lost. Looks like they both gave up pretty much the same. Only had 2 sacks. Yahoo says 8 for the Chargers and 5 for the Rams. So it's Los Angeles versus Los Angeles. And I believe those scores were pretty close because you lost points and you did give up pretty decent amount of yardage on both sides there. But it doesn't matter, really, because what the actual number was. Because here it was the biggest difference maker, mentioned before, is the Aaron Rodgers and Ty Montgomery connection. Jordy Nelson went down in that game. I think and he went down early, though, and didn't play much. I don't think he played at all then the rest. And Randall Cobb got hurt near the end of the game, I believe. So that might have helped explain why Ty Montgomery was such a big part of it. But that's going to be a tough combination to go up against for the rest of the year, at least as long as it lasts. For Midgets here, having Aaron Rodgers and Montgomery in his flex, they're going to be pretty solid. I think it's safe to assume they're going to be putting up pretty solid numbers here week in and week out. But it's the rest of the team that's going to be an issue here. Looking at your bench, there's not too much going on, at least for right now. Hopefully for you, you're hoping for Jamison Crowder to pick it up. You still got Chris Thompson, who looks like he might be better than expected. You might have to find a way to plug him in, even though he seemed to be doing more of his damage in the passing game. I think he broke a long run this week, so you might try to find a place to squeeze him in. So the only 2 guys on your bench who are looking optimistic here are both Redskins. So you might be living and dying with the Packers and the Redskins this year. But anyway, Mighty Midgets, he moves up to 1-1, I believe, while FC Bohoric drops to 1-1. Midgets, you are in 7th place, and FC Bohoric, you are in 5th. And the final matchup, I believe this was the matchup of the week, and unfortunately, it wasn't really close. Shawshank Athletics, the Twerk and Bowl Cuts, Kibbles and was he Kibble? Were you Kibbles and Vix? I think that was you, or Twerk Kabisic, going up against Space Antelope, Dumb Spyro, whatever your name was before. Anyway, this one, a 70-point margin of victory here in favor of Shawshank, 179.95 to 109.85. So Detlin getting lucky there, thanks to Tree Size here, or else he would have been the one leaving the knockout pool here. So as he had 2 players put up zeros this week. As for Shawshank, let's get into the quarterbacks. As we know, he had Tom Brady with a huge game, going over 70 points this week, while Kirk Cousins just over 31.5. So more than doubling you up here at the quarterback position. So off to a very bad start right out of the gate. And then receivers, Shawshank has Kelvin Benjamin, DeAndre Hopkins, and Randall Cobb. Benjamin, 13.5, Hopkins, 13.5, and Cobb, 13. I should say Hopkins was 14.5, and Cobb, 13. So that was about 40 points from your 3 receivers. As for Detling, he had Jordy Nelson, who, as I mentioned, went out early in the game with an injury, and he got you 0. Nothing you can do about that. Cooper Kupp and Doug Baldwin. Cup 6.3 and Baldwin 10.4. So you only got about 17 points from your three receivers. Shawshank, he had DeMarco Murray and Jay Ajayi. Looks like Murray had 20 yards, 25 yards, while Ajayi was over 100, but looks like no touchdowns. So he got you 15. So you got about 18 from your running backs. While Space Antelope, Terrence West, and Dalvin Cook. West only 20 yards rushing, but he did get you a touchdown. And Cook 64 yards. So you got about 15 points there. Tight ends, Martellus Bennett versus Greg Olsen. The Black Unicorn versus He-Man. And as we know, Greg Olsen went down after only one catch with a broken foot. He only got you 2 points. And Bennett got you 9.5 there. Flex plays, Shawshank going with Alan Hearns. Him and Marquise Lee get a lot of production here. Uptick on their production since Allen Robinson is out. I think Marquise Lee had, 15 points. And Hearns here, he goes for about 20. A little bit over 20. While Spaced Antelope put in Dwayne Allen as his flex play. The backup tight end here from the Patriots. And he got you 0. Take a quick look at your bench here. I guess you took out Adrian Peterson, moved Dalvin Cook into the running back spot, and decided to flex Dwayne Allen over Kenny Stills, or so you could have played Peterson. You got a couple of guys here. Not too much to pick from there, really. So. It doesn't make a difference in a 70-point victory here. So, kickers, Crosby for Shawshank and Walsh for Space Antelope, 4-3 according to Yahoo. And defenses, this one actually went a little bit in favor of Space Antelope, Baltimore versus Cleveland, and then Josh had Oakland versus the Jets. Yahoo says 24 for Baltimore and 16 for Oakland. It was probably... So I think Baltimore was closer to 35, I want to say. And Oakland was a little bit more, probably around 20 there. You always have to... More often than not, you tack on at least a couple points there. From whatever Yahoo says. But anyway, especially if your defense won the game. But anyway, like I said, it was a 70-point margin of victory there. Tom Brady dominated. You lost your best receiver, and you got 0 from your flex. So those were the biggest difference makers here. Good game from the Athletics. 180 points. Usually going to be enough to get you a win. Joshy stays undefeated. He is 2-0, and he is now all the way up in second place. While Matthew, Space Antelope... Why did I just say Matthew? I'm just reading off of the Yahoo screen here. So Detling, he is 1-1, and he is now in 8th place. All right, I think that's all the matchups. Try to keep it as quick as possible. I feel like I'm talking as fast as I can and going through this stuff as quickly as I can. But yet I still look here, and I'm already at 43.5 minutes here, so I don't know how that happens. But anyway, any last things to tie it together here? Like I said, Possum Magic, he is now eliminated from the knockout pool. I'm going to have to actually get, whenever I post the video, I'll have to actually put up something on the message board here so we keep track from week to week who the knockout pool victim is. I didn't put up anything last week, so I'll try and do that here starting up this week, just to keep that somewhere where we can see it. Other than that, another good week. Said a couple of lopsided matchups and a frustrating one for one of the Hubers. Bliss for one Huber and disappointment for the heartbreak for the other. So yeah, the yin to the yang there. But anyway, let's see what else. We had a couple close ones and a couple blowouts here. Uh, I know I could go probably on a 10-minute rant about my team here, which I will spare you though. But said again, it's the same. It feels like the last couple of years, the same thing keeps happening. Starting the season 0-3, 0-2, 1-4, just not being able to putting up scores that beat most of the teams in the league, but getting losses. So it's really just come down to, I guess I can blame Gags because he was the one who chose the schedule shuffling to make it what it is. But anyway, it's always going to be frustrating to look around and see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You would 8 teams who scored lower than me this week, but still getting a loss here. And that's all that matters is wins and losses. The points don't really play a big difference until you're getting down here to playoff contention. Those last couple weeks there is when the points really do matter the most, but right now it's wins and losses. And we got some symmetry in the standings here. 4 teams at the top, 4 in the middle, and 4 at the bottom at 2-0, 1-1, and 0-2. So we'll see which way it's. And of course, as we all know, once when you're starting 0-2, you are well on your way to 7, which is the magic number in terms of either wins or losses to get you into the playoffs. We're already, when you get to 6, you're pretty much on the brink there of either making it or getting knocked out of the playoffs there. So the Isotopes, everybody Ertz, Gags to Riches, and Possum Magic, we're already 33% of the way to 6. So after 2 weeks here, so those teams are going to have to start turning it around, getting some victories, and the guys in the middle, the guys at the top, I think some of the teams at the top are the teams that I kind of thought would be at the top. And the guys in the middle, it's played out. I mean, of course, I thought I would be doing better than I was. But hey, it's only 2 weeks. It's going to be a fight all the way, as it always is. It's always a fight all the way down to the last week of the season here. So 2 down, 11 to go. So we'll see what happens. And I will stop ranting and raving about my team, or else I will hear about it later on, probably in the podcast in the unfinished business section. So actually, I probably just doomed myself right there by parodying the way that they say unfinished business, and I will hear about, that's probably what we'll hear about in this week's podcast. So at least I've given you some ammo to fire with there. So, all right, anyway, that's it for week 2 here. Good luck to everybody here in the upcoming week, but of course, good luck especially to me. So, see you back here again next week. Thanks, guys.